Good afternoon, everybody. What's going on? Good to see you. GoodMicWork, Winged Eagle Podcast, back at you on a Saturday afternoon here, February 8th, 2020. And boy, is this a loaded episode. Holy shit. How you guys been? We got a big week of not only news, but wrestling to get into. We got like 10 pay-per-views on the horizon. It's WrestleMania season. The XFL is back, and I am dizzy. So, yeah, it's going to be a loaded episode with lots to discuss, and should be fun. Should be a fun ride. Happy weekend, everybody, and hello to everybody that's in here already. All right, we got a moderator in here. Good to see you, How Wheezy. Thank you for taking care of a dirtbag up in here. You're the man. Harry Rice, Chat Site Forums, Jet, Shanus Ernie, Vape. Good to see a handful of you in here already. Let's see if we can do a better audience than last week. Last Saturday sucked, man. I don't know what was going on. So hopefully we'll have a little bit better viewership this week for the Winged Eagle, because in addition to all of the wrestling news, first of all, let me just say right off the bat, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and AEW were all great shows this week. I mean, how many times do you think in the course of 1 year that we can say all four shows, you know, in terms of the two major, you know, U.S. brands were good, and all of them were, you know, at least I think so. Let me do a sound check. All right, we're looking good. So that really loaded up my notes just in terms of wrestling, because all four shows had great things on them, and there's lots to get into on all of those. But not only that, is we have a ton of wrestling news to get into too. So this will be a fun episode. This will be a loaded episode, and there's no shortage of things to talk about. I want to peek back over here to the chat as well and just say hello to anybody that's just kind of rolling in right now. I will not puke if I get dizzy, Ernie. I promise I won't. I've got a couple of programming notes for you, too. I have decided I didn't think I was going to have time to get up a classic pay-per-view review in the month of February. I'm kind of putting together WrestleMania stuff, but there was one pay-per-view that just kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, oh my God, if there's ever a year to do this particular February pay-per-view review, this is it, you know, considering what's going on. So I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag yet, but I'm working on a classic pay-per-view review, and if you tune into my channel on Monday, immediately following Raw, I'll be up here doing a live Raw review. I'll have the date for you. I was hoping to have it now, but I'm just not sure what my schedule holds this week quite yet. So it's either going to be like Tuesday or Thursday or Friday. It's going to be this week coming up sometime. So I'm just not sure which date yet. But by the time we get to Monday night and my Raw review, I will know. So tune in this Monday night, and I'll let you know exactly when to expect that classic pay-per-view review. And it's going to be a good one, and it's extremely topical based on what's going to be happening at WrestleMania. So keep a lookout for that. I also want to shout out my patrons before we get started here, because other than that classic pay-per-view review, luckily, I don't have any other programming notes for you. Normally I roll through a whole bunch of shit. Oh, I'm going out of town, or I'm changing this up, or there's this review coming up, or whatever. None of that to really talk about today, so I don't have to bore you. But my patrons want to hook you guys up with a shout out, because you guys are awesome and you keep the channel rolling and you keep it moving. Barry MK400, as always, thank you for your patronage. Blake Moran, Claudio Clavadetcher, Domanian, Elwell Sr., Daniel Rodriguez, my boy, Devlin husband that I met on the cruise, Jordan Karg, John Riffle, Keith Hammonds, Josiah Blevins, John Redifer, Keith Salyers, Michael Kumo, Mr. Steve, Reese Jones, welcome back. Nice $10 patron there. Nathan Walker, Ryan Y, Steve, and the Double Z TV. You guys are awesome, and as I look at some of your lifetime pledges here, wow, I am not worthy. Thank you very much as always. You guys rule. I think we should start with the XFL today. Let's just dive right into that, because there are games happening as we speak. Now, one game is already over. The DC Defenders defeated the Seattle Dragons 31-19. I did have the game on, and I was eyeballing it. Now, I was doing a whole bunch of other shit today, so it didn't have my full attention, but the production of it, you know, the commentary, the way it just had this completely different feel of the first rendition of the XFL. It felt serious, had more of a CFL or arena football type of feel, where the fans actually seemed to care, the players seemed to care. Crowd wasn't too bad. Looked like there was a decent group in the house there. I don't even know where they were, DC or Seattle. I'm not even sure. And the game wasn't bad. It was like good football, you know. And I think a lot of the problems we saw in the first XFL, among many problems, I don't think it was necessarily the play, but it got real bad once the XFL started tanking. The poor play really started becoming the focal point. You know, WWE, I think, dug themselves in the hole with, you know, Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler calling games and The Rock opening up shows and naked cheerleaders and shit like that. But, you know, as that began to shine through and the ratings tanked and all of that, then everybody started making fun of how bad the football was. Well, I think this time around, they've learned from those mistakes. And I was one of the few people in the camp the first time around that was like, okay, the XFL was kind of a wacky idea. Wasn't sure if it was really going to work, but I felt it could have gone much longer than 1 year. I thought they could have gone 3, could have gone 5, but before throwing in the towel. So I was always of the opinion that in theory, the XFL should work, not to compete with, the NFL, but the XFL should basically be like AEW and NFL is the WWE, at least like that, to where, okay, they're a smaller company, much, much smaller company, but, they still have their fans, they still have their supporters, the games are good, it's a different type of football, there's a couple of rule changes that are interesting, I really like the way they do kickoffs and stuff, so this feels like they got their shit together a little bit more. Now, if you remember 20 years ago, the XFL started out real hot too. They had a great first couple of weeks. A lot of it was entertaining. The ratings were through the roof. WWE got all ahead of themselves, got a real big head to where they wouldn't shut the fuck up about how great the XFL was doing, and then it immediately tanked after that. So we've already seen the XFL get off to a good start before. The question is here, can they sustain this? And based on what we've seen and what you guys have been telling me on social media and the feedback and everything that I've been seeing in the reaction so far, I think it's got a chance. Like I said, it's not going to be the NFL. It's not going to ever overtake that. There's just no way that can happen in any sort of short time span whatsoever. So they're going to have to operate as a secondary, smaller, minor league type of football league. And if they do that, I think they can build kind of their own audience, Some people love football. It's a very long offseason. Football has the longest offseason of all the sports, 8 months. So from February to August or whatever it is, there is no football. And the regular season doesn't even really start till September. So it's a long offseason, and people who are diehard football fans, this might be something for them. And plus, the NFL, it's good timing. NFL's got a ton of controversy. You have fans that are boycotting the NFL for completely different political reasons. You have fans on both sides of the political fence boycotting the company or boycotting the league. It's kind of funny how that works, but there really are a lot of fans soured on the NFL for various reasons, whether it be their political stances or their the way the game is changing, and and the overprotection and the concussion rules are changing a lot of stuff. Tom Brady and Bill Belichick are Roman Reigns and John Cena-ing that place to death. And fans are just kind of getting they're kind of getting over it. So they're looking for something else. Maybe the XFL can be that something else. So I'm rooting for them, I'm rooting for them for a lot of different reasons. One little minor reason too, we've talked about this, is Vince McMahon and how fed up and annoyed everybody is with Vince McMahon. He's out of touch and he's fucking everything up in the WWE. If this XFL starts taking off, it can really maybe divert his attention over there. How this guy's in his 70s and is spread so incredibly thin, when you listen to him and everything he talked about on the 2019 fiscal year earnings call this past Thursday, I think it was, you listen to Vince's business mind. Then Vince has the creative mind because he's got his hands and fingers in every single piece of WWE's creative, across all their brands. Then he's also heading up this XFL. Is he a robot? I don't understand. Everybody's like, oh, WWE will be better when Vince McMahon dies. He might not die. He might be a fucking alien, because how he keeps track of all this shit, no wonder he's a little bit out of touch. No wonder, he doesn't understand what might get over with a modern wrestling audience anymore, because his brain just doesn't have time to understand any of this shit. He's just spread way too goddamn thin. It's crazy. So the bigger the XFL gets, maybe the more that'll, have Vince's attention, and his focus will be there a little bit more than the wrestling side of things, and just let other people take care of shit. Because, as we're going to talk about here in a little bit, Bruce Pritchard and Paul Heyman are heading up Raw and SmackDown, at least that's the word on the street, creatively. And this week, both of those shows were pretty damn good. As much as I don't give a shit about the Saudi Arabia shows, I don't think we have any business being over there at all, but they're building this well. I mean, this doesn't feel like a glorified house show. Both shows set up Super Showdown in a pretty good way. And there was controversy, around surrounding a couple of matches that have been announced, but we'll talk about that. But otherwise, I think both shows made me curious. If Super Showdown wasn't in Saudi Arabia, and it was in damn Oklahoma City or something, I might be a little bit more interested in it. But, I think they're treating the shows as serious enough to where they can do, kind of like dream matches, even though nothing might in the end happen. We've seen a couple of title changes. Universal title has changed hand, twice in Saudi Arabia. I don't think it'll happen a third time. just to give you an early spoiler. But we'll talk about that. And Paul Heyman and Bruce Pritchard, at least they had a good week. It's not always good. We're seeing some really stupid shit on TV every week. I'm not saying we're not. But at least for WrestleMania time, I remember this time last year being really disappointed. I remember this time last year, us doing live streams and just being like, what the fuck? It's WrestleMania season. Aren't things supposed to be a little bit more exciting than this? And at least for this week, I think that we were treated to a nice week of wrestling. But we'll get into that. We'll get into that in a minute. Before I get into these, some of the news coming out of that earnings call, let me bust out a super chat or two. Austin Kinko, good to see you in here again, man. Thank you very much for the $5. The Fiend facing Goldberg's makes me think he might be facing Taker at Mania. What do you think? Yeah, maybe. I mean, we've all been joking, and I'm going to talk a lot about this later on. And this is going to be a 2-hour podcast today, by the way. So we've talked about and joked about primarily that Roman Reigns facing The Fiend is likely what WWE's going to do. Because despite WWE not having Roman Reigns anywhere near a world title for nearly a year and a half now, the fans still have this narrative in their head that WWE pushes him and only him and nobody else. So with that mentality, naturally the fans are just going to assume, oh shit, you got a big, bad, dominant heel, and he's going to tear through a couple of people, and WrestleMania's on the horizon. Oh, shit, he's going to drop the belt to Roman Reigns, right? So that all feels like the direction they're going to go and could very well and will likely be the case. But maybe it's not. Maybe all this stuff, maybe WWE's kind of taken a break from Roman. He's had all of his moments, and maybe they'll spend the time to build somebody else. But if The Fiend isn't facing Roman Reigns, who is he going to face? That's why it seems like Reigns is so obvious, especially since he's stalling. Yet another match coming up with Baron Corbin. The Fiend seemingly is going to have a one-off with Bill Goldberg. And then after Super Showdown, both guys got no opponents. So there you go. But if they wanted to go in a completely different direction and put The Fiend over even more strong, have him defeat Bill Goldberg at Super Showdown, then go on to WrestleMania to defeat The Undertaker, putting down a couple of legends in the span of 2 months, I'd be totally into that too. There's also the talk, and again, we'll talk about this later, but some people feel, oh shit, Goldberg might beat The Fiend and Roman faces Goldberg at WrestleMania. I understand that in theory, that fans will say, oh, maybe Goldberg will beat The Fiend because the WWE knows that if Roman beats The Fiend, the fans are going to boo their asses off. But if Roman beats Goldberg, they actually might be okay with that. But I understand that completely, and you're right. It's just, I don't think so. I don't think Goldberg and Roman would be a very good match. And I think Goldberg is probably just going to do the job. I think Goldberg's probably taking a payday here. Goldberg creatively, he's going to have a pretty bad record here in Saudi Arabia after losing to The Undertaker in that horrible match, and now having a match with The Fiend. I would be very surprised and very, quite frankly, disappointed if Bill Goldberg won the Universal title. I am supremely confident that he will not. I think that he's going to be another opponent for The Fiend to conquer. And then he goes into WrestleMania to face Roman, to not face Roman, I don't know. But I certainly don't think that Goldberg would beat The Fiend. It just wouldn't make any sense. It would be a pretty big match, Roman against Goldberg, but we've already seen Goldberg do too much. He's already worked and lost to The Undertaker, to Brock. He came back and worked with Ziggler last year. It wouldn't feel like an attraction. Goldberg and Roman, to me, wouldn't feel that big because Goldberg's already lost. If he was coming through and winning every match, he beat Brock and never lost to Brock, and had a little bit more of a run, maybe a little bit more dominant, I dare say. Maybe I would give a shit. And then he'd put Roman over, of course, but I don't know. I don't think that would be a very good match. It looks good on paper, but in the ring, I think it would look like shit. I'd much rather see Roman Reigns and Bray Wyatt as far as quality of the in-ring work. But anyway, we're getting way ahead. I'll get back to that later. Austin, thanks as always. Let's talk about this, some of the news. Now, there's a ton of news, like a shit ton of news, coming out of WWE's fourth quarter earnings call and the 2019 fiscal year call that was on the 6th, which I think was Thursday. Now, they opened up and discussed all the details regarding the departures of George Barrios and Michelle Wilson that we learned of last week. And basically what they said there is that was really due to creative differences. So Vince just straight up fired them because they had different visions. I think, when I was reading the story, it looked like they had different ideas for how, money was going to be spent. These guys wanted to save money and invest here, and Vince wanted to save money and invest there. And in the end, Vince is the owner. So, You're going to do what he wants, or you're going to go bye-bye. And they did. So I think they tried to reassure everybody, that everything will be fine. They've got another guy in place. They're looking for, new people to take over this position. And I'm sure from the business end of things will probably be fine. This is so deep in there that I don't necessarily think that will necessarily harm in any way the creative and what we see on television. This is more of an internal type of thing where it's going to drastically affect stock prices and shit, and the stocks have been dropping all week, so that kind of sucks. But all that is bounce backable, I think, and we'll eyeball it. And even though that's huge news, in the end, I don't think it's going to affect us as wrestling fans that directly. You know what I mean? But among all of the news that was announced, and there was a ton of it, some figures were up, some figures were down. The WWE's jacking some prices up on some stuff, especially internationally, to kind of make up for other revenue. I guess the overall financial numbers, including overall revenue, I think was up about 3%, but they had all that TV money coming in, from, Fox and USA and Saudi Arabia money coming in. So they're up just a little bit from last year. And they also detailed their current TV deals and the ratings. Raw continues to decline. We've seen that for the past, I don't know how long now. And SmackDown, however, is up. They're up 20%. They're on Fox now, and that was the ratings boost they were expecting to get on a network like that. So I guess that was sort of good news. Overall here, the news was not good, though. Network subscriptions have also dropped. They're the lowest since 2016. NXT is gone from the network now, or at least exclusively. It's now on USA Network. They now offered a free tier that's available, which I haven't taken a look at because I've been a paid subscriber since day one, so I don't know what the free tier is like. But, and plus all of the promotions that they always do, 30-day trial, you get your pay-per-view for free, WrestleMania, and then you can just cancel it. All these things that they're doing is probably contributing to the lower subscription numbers. But to me, still, like I've said a million times, $9.99 is a steal, and I'd be glad. I'd pay $20 for this thing. But a lot of fans just feel that it's not necessary to have it, and the network subscriptions the numbers are not good there. Now, one thing that was alarming there is that they were bringing up, I think Vince was asked, about, I don't know, maybe it was other business ventures or whatever, and basically asked if they would be open to selling the pay-per-view rights to like another OTT platform or another streaming service or a streaming company. And he basically said, absolutely. And this ties into something we just talked about. When did we talk about this? Not last week's podcast, but the week before. I'm pretty sure it was 2 weeks ago, right here on the Winged Eagle. We talked about this exact possibility of one day. We've talked about it before, too. We've talked about it a few times over the years. But one thing that is alarming when you started seeing all these big TV deals coming into WWE, I think it just all hit us, just common sense. We were like, at what point does WWE just start airing WrestleMania like the Super Bowl and selling it to a major network? Think of all the money and the eyeballs that are on the Super Bowl, and how much Fox probably pays to have that. I mean, if this company now, being a public company, and their number one goal among anything else, what comes first is making money. Everything else is second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever. So in order to do that, they're going to do whatever they have to do to bring in as much money as possible. And it was, only a natural progression that's something that would be a possibility for the future. I was hoping it wouldn't happen this quick. Vince even said they could put some sort of a deal in place and announce something before the end of the first quarter in 2020, which is frightening because this could mean a ton of different things. This could mean going back to paying for pay-per-views again, because WWE's probably lost a lot of that revenue. They did this, the WWE Network. In theory, I would love for it to continue just the way it is, because as a fan, it's the easiest way for me. It's cheap, it's easy, it's affordable. It's not a big deal. If I have to start jumping through flaming goddamn hula hoops to watch wrestling, it's going to become incredibly annoying. And I'm not looking to spend any more damn money on this shit. And especially when you have these like in-between pay-per-views, like what's a real shitty one, like Battleground and Payback and Fastlane. Who the fuck is going to pay $60 for that? I'm not. Well, I guess I am, because I kind of have to. But if I'm a fan with no YouTube channel, I'm not. So whatever this means here, whether it goes to like an HBO or a Netflix or whatever, it's a little bit frightening, and I'm not liking where this is headed because of what it could mean for the consumer and us being able to find and watch the product easily. and have it as accessible as possible. Now, what this could also mean with SmackDown being on Fox and WWE having this really strong relationship with them right now, they got the backstage show and all of this. This ties into what we were talking about WrestleMania. Could one day they put that shit on TV and just load it up with commercials and collect $1 billion payday for that? And that could be all tied into this. WrestleMania, I don't know if it would be really, I don't know if there's time to really pull that off this year, but in future years, maybe starting next year, a WrestleMania that I'm likely going to be at, because I expect that to be here in LA or in Vegas, that could be on TV. It could be on Fox. And in a lot of ways, from a wrestling fan's perspective, from somebody that's in this club with all of you guys, I don't want that to happen. I don't want that. I want it just the way it is. Fuck that. It'd be so annoying to watch it. I mean, think about the Super Bowl. Every time there's a break in the action, between downs, timeouts, whatever, it's commercial. So how they would do that on TV would just be, oh my God, it'd be so annoying to watch. However, the other flip side of that is that think about how many people, how many outside eyeballs that are not wrestling fans, maybe casual wrestling fans or don't care about wrestling at all, watch that, are watching that normally wouldn't, because it's on a major network on a prime time Sunday night sometime, in April or March. Fox is promoting the shit out of it. They're advertising it like the Super Bowl or American Idol and shit like that. And it's just on TV, and people who have no interest in wrestling happen to tune in. That could be like 1 million extra eyeballs. And what do you guys think the statistics are on that? For people who don't watch wrestling, everybody becomes a wrestling fan at some point in their life, right? Everybody sees it for the first time and decides they like it, right? So if you put WrestleMania on Fox, that could add 1 million, and that's probably a low number. It's probably more than that. It could add 1 million or more extra eyeballs that would never be on WrestleMania because they weren't network subscribers, and they wouldn't have thought to go online and check out WrestleMania. But they've been seeing advertisements out the ass on Fox. Then it airs, they watch it, and out of those 1 million non-wrestling fans that are watching WrestleMania, how many of those 1 million do you think became a fan or became interested in WrestleMania after seeing that? 3%? It's 30,000 people. 4%? What do you think? Something like that. 10%? And then you're talking 100,000 people. That could birth more wrestling fans, because WrestleManias do still in most years tend to be pretty good, even though we have tons of problems with the modern day product. If you're going to show an outside audience any form of wrestling and say, hey, just so you think all of us wrestling fans aren't crazy, let us show you why we like this. WrestleMania, you can't get a better advertisement than that. So, in theory, that could actually be a really good idea for WWE if they're looking to grow their audience more, because numbers and ratings are way down. I remember back in the day, if WWE got like a 4.5 or a 4.8 in the ratings on Raw, that was considered bad. Now they're getting 2.1s. And if it's 2.2 the next week, they're like, sweet, an increase. And TV ratings have changed completely. I don't even really think those matter too much anymore, because I don't even watch TV. TV used to be my life 20 years ago. I'd have cable on every channel, and, I'd watch Raw and Nitro every week without fail. Now it's like I can YouTube it, I can stream it, I can DVR it, whatever. So many things are different now. You can't really just judge TV ratings because, that's not the majority of the audience. So I know the numbers, it doesn't really, add up, but still, regardless, the numbers are down. The amount of people watching wrestling is way down than it was back when Austin was on top in the Attitude Era and shit. So if you want to grow an audience, as much as I hate to say it, and I'm resisting the shit out of this, it might be a good idea, to put them on Fox, because it might actually get you some more fans. You might have people that saw WrestleMania and say, you know what, I'm going to tune into that Raw show tomorrow night because I want to see what the fuck's going to happen after that. If you have 1 million extra people watching, you're going to hook somebody. You're not going to have all 1 million people say, that sucks, I'm not going to watch that again. No, there will be people coming in that will give you fans, and that will build your audience for sure. So it could be happening, and I'm not liking it. Yeah, I remember back in the day when WrestleMania was like $70 back in like 2008 when they first started the HD. I remember thinking that was great because I had only had an HD TV for a couple of years by that point, and I remember it was Royal Rumble. I think it was Royal Rumble 2008 was like the first pay-per-view they broadcast in HD. And I remember watching it. I ordered that night, and I could not believe it. I'm like, wow, it's so fucking clear. Now it's like, it's just second nature. Everything's like that. But way back in 2008, a mere 12 years ago, that was very much a different story. And of I mean, what would you rather do? Would you rather pay for WrestleMania and have it in the normal pay-per-view format where we don't have to worry about commercials and advertisements and TV networks and, all that shit? Or would you rather have it for free on Fox with all the nonsense that goes with being on a major network like that? What would be better? I'd almost rather pay for it, to be honest. I'm just not liking that idea, but I mean, this is going to be a big thing. I think a lot of people, I mean, don't underestimate this. This could be a very, this could be a paradigm shift, if you will, or something, and just in the overall business of WWE. I've seen every WrestleMania from its very first one. WrestleMania, when it started, there wasn't even pay-per-view. That wasn't even a thing. It was closed circuit. You went to the movie theater and watched it on the big screen. And the way that progressed and evolved through pay-per-view, now onto the WWE network, now coming out on the other side, and now being on television. Man, it's just going to be so different if that winds up happening, and it probably will. So anyway, y'all let me know what you think about that. Moving on with wrestling news, Dave Meltzer is reporting that Rusev is out off TV currently with a contract dispute. We have not seen him in a while. Him and Bobby Lashley, it was so dumb. At the Royal Rumble, they just announced randomly that Lashley and Rusev got into a fight, and they were taken out of the Royal Rumble. There was no footage of this. They didn't film a pre-tape, nothing like that. They just probably ran out of room and were like, oh, we'll just take them both out of the Royal Rumble. Rusev hasn't been seen since, and apparently there is a contract dispute going on. I don't know if it's contract negotiations, if he wants out. Lana just signed a brand new 5-year deal. I mean, we have so many couples spread apart, AEW and WWE. I mean, are we going to get another one here if Rusev leaves his wife and goes over there and joins Moxley and Shawn Spears and Britt Baker and everybody else that's got a significant other in the other company? I don't know. If Rusev resigns, what are they going to do with him? Probably nothing. So I'm interested to see if he maybe just bounces. I kind of hope that he does. Looks like EC3 might be heading over to AEW as well. He was spotted, or Jericho sent something out, I think, on Instagram talking. I think he was either on the podcast or they were just hanging out together. A lot of people are like, holy shit, you're going to get EC3 in trouble. How is that even possible? How can you even get in trouble if you're EC3? What are they going to do? Fire him? Yes, please. That would be all right. I'm guessing if it was, if I had to guess here, maybe EC3's contract is really close to coming up and he's just, not going to be back, and so he's just kind of making plans. Luke Harper, was kind of doing the same thing. You knew where he was going to wind up, so I hope that EC3 is not being jerked around for too much longer in WWE, and he heads on over to AEW. Oh, I didn't even put this down. Shit, why don't I mention that? For some reason, I thought I mentioned it last week, but it was announced that Killer Kross is signed with WWE as well, and Scarlett Bordeaux is already there, so it wasn't really a surprise that he would be there. It's just, I kind of thought it would be a year. I just thought that he might not want anything to do with a contract right now, despite everything he went through with Impact. So, he might just kind of continue to roll, build a name, build himself up, on the independents, because he can easily find work without a problem, and then maybe come into the WWE after he, wrestles another year. But he's there now, and I think that's great. That's going to just provide some really interesting just matchups right off the bat. I don't know how slow they're going to start him, if it'll be a few weeks before we see him debut in any form on TV. But you give me some Killer Kross and Matt Riddle matches or something, holy shit. What do you guys think about his name? I mean, Ryan Satin on Backstage, he announced him as Killer Kross. Killer Kross has signed with the WWE, but are they going to keep somebody with the name Killer in his name? Not sure. I mean, it seems like, Killer Kross is a badass name. I don't want anything to change about it. But considering the way WWE is so fucking anal about everything, and with the TV product, or, in the TV rating, I should say, and everything that, Chris Benoit did, Daniel Bryan got fired for choking Justin Roberts, remember? Do they want a guy with Killer in his name? I don't know. I kind of hope that they keep it, but they might just wind up calling him Cross. Which is a good segue to what I'm going to get into in a minute. I don't know. But either way, congrats to him. He's a hell of a guy. Everybody kind of pulls for him. Just a really solid dude. Good person to have in the wrestling world. Good representation of what a professional wrestler is. Great attitude. Hard worker. He'll be fine. And so best of luck to him, and I'm glad that he's there. Now, speaking of what his name's going to be, it could just be Killer. Kind of like Murphy. So, Buddy Murphy is no more. WWE has dropped yet another first name. With this one, though, I don't care. When I saw it, a lot of you guys were tweeting me last night because I asked on Twitter for some SmackDown updates because I wasn't home to watch the show. And a lot of you were saying that they changed Buddy Murphy's name. So I'm like, did this happen on SmackDown or something? But I don't think so. It just people were just reading the news. You go over to WWE.com and look at the Raw roster, and it just says Murphy. So what's the big deal here? They just changed Andrade's name. They've changed Apollo's name and then changed it back. They changed Harper's name and changed it back. They dropped Langston from Big E. They dropped Antonio from Cesaro. They've done this, and Rusev. What was Rusev's name again? Why I always forget him. So it's nothing new. And with Buddy Murphy, I wasn't really a fan of Buddy Murphy, the name in general anyway. So now that he's just Murphy, okay, like I'm not surprised, but I think the fans' instinct is just to automatically just attack the decision because we've heard it so many times. It doesn't make sense. I'll admit that. I don't understand why they choose to do this. But sometimes I don't think it's really going to affect the talent one way or the other. If it was a name change that was going to change up the character, change the way the fans felt about him, or harm him in any way, then I'm resistant to it, obviously. But this one, is it going to matter with Buddy Murphy? Are people going to just not give a shit about him because he doesn't have the name Buddy in his name? And I am so sorry because a lot of you guys were telling me this. I'm a big South Park fan, but I am way behind. I mean, many, many years behind in episodes. I don't know the reference there that you guys were talking about, something about South Park. Or did I say Seinfeld or South Park? South Park, whatever. I'm not your buddy or whatever. I don't know what that is. Never saw the episode, so I'm sorry about that. But a lot of you guys were mentioning that to me on the social meds. So yeah, no more Buddy. I've got Adam Bomb, Brian Clark, written in my notes here because the former WWE wrestler and WCW wrestler, he was Adam Bomb in WWE, and he was one half of Chronic with Brian Adams in WCW. He's facing some drug charges, some pretty bad charges. He's got charges of conspiracy, illegal control of enterprise, transporting or selling narcotics, drug possession, and possessing a weapon during a drug offense. Yikes. His accomplice is also charged with the same stuff minus the weapons charge. So that's not good. Sounds like he was into some pretty heavy shit there. This is not like he wasn't like pulled over with some coke in his pocket. This sounds like it's way bigger than that, and that does not look good for him. I didn't really know that he was into like bad shit. I mean, I've seen shoot interviews with him, over the years since his retirement and stuff, and he seems relatively down to earth. He did not like the Clique. Holy shit. And I don't think they liked him either. But yeah, that's a shame. Too bad. I don't know why people choose to do that to themselves, but he is going to jail. We also had an NXT departure. Apparently, Tanara Conti walked out of the company. There's some sort of disagreement earlier on in January. Financially, I think, is what the word on the street is. I wasn't too sold on her anyway. I mean, she was all right, good-looking girl, but every time I saw her wrestle, I just thought she needed a lot more seasoning. So not a huge loss there for WWE, but it does illustrate that it's not all, rainbows and unicorns in NXT. There are people there unhappy. There was some sort of big talent meeting, I think, this week as well, where they advised and told the talent not to talk to the dirt sheets and do interviews. But then in the very same meeting, reminded them that they're independent contractors. And I'm like, bitch, you're going to tell me who I can and can't talk to? Am I an independent contractor or I am an employee? The balls on this company is infuriating. I mean, I cannot believe how fucking just brazen they are to be that way. Oh, by the way, you're just an independent contractor. Oh, and you can't do this or that. Like, fuck off, man. So, yeah, I'm glad that some talent, isn't just so hell-bent on, like, achieving their dream of being a wrestler that they're going to sacrifice, their own pride and individuality and shit like that. I just don't like that. It really rubs me the wrong way, the WWE really tries to control your every move. It's just not right. And that's why I know I wouldn't survive there. If I was, 21 years younger and I wanted to jump in the ring, I'd probably be walking out like she did. So anyway, best of luck to her. No true loss for NXT, but, it could be the beginning of, more disgruntled people. And now when you have AEW there, a company that is turning a profit now, that's getting, TV deal extensions, and now looks like they got some sort of a foothold and they're not going away anytime soon, talent might see that as an option and be like, all right, let me get out from underneath this soul-sucking rock that I'm under in WWE and go somewhere else where I can spread my wings a little bit. You might see more of that. Also, I wrote this down only because I'm really interested in it. I saw the trailer for the Ruthless Aggression WWE special that comes up on the network immediately after TakeOver Portland next Sunday, week from tomorrow, the 16th. So that's going to be fun. It's going to be a great night of wrestling. TakeOver Portland is looking big because that's now, takeovers look like they're turning into major pay-per-views. It's no longer like a 4-match, 2-hour card. This is going to be a longer card, 3+ hours, with a lot of amazing matches on there. And then right after that, there's a pretty cool looking network special coming up, and I am really interested in taking a look at that. We'll probably talk about that the following night when I do my Raw review. Speaking of Raw, I did a Raw review this past week. We talked about it, came up after the show was over. Just want to mention a couple of things about the show because it was a really good Monday Night Raw, in my opinion. It was a very good Monday Night Raw, and like I said, we followed it up with a bunch of good wrestling all throughout the week. So just want to mention a couple of points on Raw. Let me say hello to the chat again, make sure nothing crazy is happening, no fights have broken out, nobody spilled it. If you spill something in there, please clean it up. I just had these floors done. Kenneth Kristen, Kaiser Cross. You guys are throwing out Killer Cross names. I like it. Kaiser Kristen. Or no, Kenneth Kristen. Kaiser Cross, Kevin Cross, Kyle Cross. Kyle Cross. I could see that. FRGN, what's up, man? Alexander Rusev. I knew it was A. It's like, it's not Antonio. It's not Antoine. What the hell is it? Alexander Rusev. Thank you, Austin. That was driving me crazy. And it's not the first time that I've not been able to remember his name. I think I streamed once before. I'm like, what did Rusev's first name used to be? Thank you, man. Yeah, and Ruthless Aggression era. And I even told you guys that all of my pay-per-view reviews that I want to do this year, I want it to be from a lot of those Ruthless Aggression years. The one that I'm doing in a couple of days is just a year before then, but it's close. So it's really good timing, too, because I want to watch that special because that was a crazy time. So anyway, just a couple of quick points here on Monday Night Raw before we move on. First of all, shout out to the fans there. Raw was in Salt Lake City. They had all sorts of weather problems. A lot of people were snowed in. There was even talk of Raw being canceled because of the bad weather, but it wasn't. Fans were able to make it to the arena. They had a pretty good audience in there too, and they were jacked. So props to the fans for not only getting there, but giving a shit. You really helped the show. That was a really well-written show. The fans, I think, helped it even more. A lot of big news coming out of there. Maybe the biggest, arguably the biggest. They did a triple threat main event match with Ricochet, Seth Rollins, and Bobby Lashley. The winner of this match would face Brock Lesnar at Super Showdown. This was obvious right from the start that it was going to be Ricochet because Lesnar facing those other two makes no sense. We've already seen him face Seth enough, and Seth isn't really that. His position in the card isn't really for Lesnar right now. He's doing his thing with his dumb little faction. That's just not a match I thought was going to happen. Plus, they're both heels. Same reason Brock wouldn't face Bobby Lashley, in my opinion, because it's a match we've all wanted to see. But boy, would that be slapped together for no reason, you know? And who the hell in their right mind would think Bobby Lashley has any chance in hell of beating him? If you're going to do Lashley and Lesnar, you need to build Lashley up and not make him look like a moron, which is the only thing he's done since being on the WWE's roster. So that made no sense. But Ricochet, you know, he took the dick kick from him or the nut shot from him a few weeks back. There's that tie in there. Brock needs an opponent for Super Showdown. He's going to WrestleMania to face Drew, so he's going to be champion, which means he's in zero danger whatsoever of dropping the belt at Super Showdown. But it's a payday for him. This was a great decision. And at least there's some continuity there. At least there is some sort of a history with Ricochet and Brock Lesnar. I could not believe the amount of people that were complaining about this with that it doesn't make sense shit. Oh my God, sometimes I just want to fucking hammer a nail into my own head. This is so good. Like, think about you don't necessarily just need a reason all the time. There was never, the guys were getting title shots years ago all the time. As a matter of fact, oh God, there's been lots. I think multiple times Mankind got title shots. He was not the position on the card. He got the title shot in April of 97. Why? Hell, even by the time he got when he won the title, at least he was starting to bubble. But there's been lots of situations and lots of examples where just random guys wrestle for the title. It's not a big deal. It doesn't have to make sense, and shut the fuck up because the match is going to be good. Whenever Brock works with a flippy guy, It's great. AJ Styles, Daniel Bryan, and him tore the fucking house down at 2 straight Survivor Series. Brock can work with guys like Seth Rollins, with CM Punk. Those matches are all good. And in this case, this is so much better. Instead of bitching, why don't you look at the bright side of this? If Brock is going to have a match at Super Showdown, and he's also going to be champion going into WrestleMania, what does that mean? It means he's got to win at Super Showdown. So, isn't it better that he takes on somebody like Ricochet who can give him a good match and ultimately turn out to wind up to look better in the loss than somebody like Kevin Owens? Because let's say if it was Kevin Owens, the fans would be pissed when Kevin Owens lost to Brock Lesnar. It would have that feeling like when Brock beat Samoa Joe or when Brock beat Braun Strowman. You're like, shit, WWE, you had a chance here to really make somebody and you didn't do it. What the fuck? So why do that to Owens? If you take a character or somebody on the roster level of Kevin Owens and put him in the ring with Brock, he is almost I don't want to say buried or ruined, but he is damaged from a loss, I believe, where someone like Ricochet will benefit from a loss. And that's why I think the Ricochet match, it makes more sense, because it's going to be good. Number one, it's going to be a really good match. Ricochet will have a great showing. He'll lose, but he'll have his pride. He'll say, wow, I had a couple of near falls on the beast. A couple of years ago, I wasn't even in WWE. I was, having a match with Will Ospreay that set the internet on fire, debating as to whether or not what I do is wrestling. Now I'm in the ring with Brock, nearly defeating him in a stadium full of 40,000 people. That's great for him. So I think with Ricochet, he can lose here and his stock can increase. Where if it was somebody else higher up on the card, like a McIntyre or an Owens or somebody like that going in there and losing to Brock, their stock can decrease. That's why I think there's nothing wrong with this match, and I think the fans that are bitching about it are crazy. We also had Randy Orton coming out. He actually opened the show. He was supposed to talk about what he did the week before to Edge. I ended up saying nothing, saying, I'm sorry, I can't do this, and walked away. So they're really doing the slow burn on this one. That's going to be a great WrestleMania match. I'm ready for that. So that was good. We had Rhea Ripley coming out and confronting Charlotte, which was a huge surprise, and she would come out and invade NXT on Wednesday. Becky and Asuka set up yet another title match, so we're going to get that either at the next pay-per-view or on Raw sometime. I don't know if they announced that for next week. Don't even know when that's taking place, but Asuka defeated, I believe, Natalya, called out Becky, says she wants another match. Becky comes out and says, okay, you're on. Ruby Riott returned on Raw as well. Lana lost to Liv Morgan in a rematch. It was pretty quick. Liv Morgan beat the shit out of her and beat her. After the match, Ruby Riott returns after being off some time with an injury. They hug, and then Ruby attacks, beats the shit out of Liv, and now you're off and running with a Ruby and Liv program. Drew McIntyre came out to face Mojo Rawley, but not before cutting a promo on Brock, saying, I'm going to beat you at WrestleMania, and then goes on to squash poor Mojo in just a few seconds, and even gave the fans props for making the show due to the weather. And speaking of Kevin Owens, great outing by him. They had like this triple threat elimination match where it was Owens and the Viking Raiders taking on Murphy in the AOP. Owens wound up losing in the end, but it was 3-on-1, and he had a really good showing for himself, and the fans gave him a standing ovation after the match. So all of that taking place on Raw, to me, translated into a great show. They did a great job setting up Super Showdown. They did a great job setting up some aspects of WrestleMania as well. The matches were good. We had some surprises. We had some returns. The Rhea Ripley shit made us crap our pants. Samoa Joe was not on the show, leading to speculation that he was also suspended in the latest batch of wellness policy violations, but that's not the case. He's not suspended, and he will return to Raw next week, and I think he's booked for the main event. So Monday Night Raw was phenomenal this past Monday, excuse me. I liked the show pretty much. It's hard to say on a 3-hour Raw that I liked it from top to bottom, but it was damn close. Yeah, I think the Brock and Ricochet match will be longer than 2 minutes. Yeah, it's not going to be a Kofi type of deal. I suppose it could be. It ain't going to be long, but I don't think Ricochet will take Brock to the limit that AJ or Daniel Bryan did, but I'm trying to think of what's realistic here. For me, this might sound like a short amount of time, but based on the style that Ricochet wrestles, it's really not. I'm going to go maybe 8 minutes on the match. I'm going to go 8 minutes, 30 seconds on the match, something like that. Ricochet's fast. He can stick and move. He can, have Brock chase him around for a while. I don't think he's going to have any meaningful offense. And I certainly don't think that Drew McIntyre would come out and cost Brock the title. Well, maybe he would. Shit, then it's Ricochet and McIntyre. And those guys had a great King of the Ring match last year, remember? So that wouldn't be a horrible match. I just don't see that happening. Ricochet going in as champion to face McIntyre? No way. I want McIntyre to be put over by beating Brock. But I could see some sort of an interaction between the two. Maybe after Brock beats Ricochet, McIntyre comes out and pays Brock back. I don't know if Brock's been on every Raw this year so far in 2020. I don't know if we're going to see him again on Raw prior to Super Showdown. But if we don't, he still needs a receipt from that F5 he gave to McIntyre. So maybe after he beats Ricochet, McIntyre comes in, nails him with a Claymore, stands over his body with holding the belt up. Something like that is what we could see. Let's move on to the Wednesday Night Wars, and then we'll finish up with SmackDown. Part of me wonders if I should start with SmackDown. Yeah, because we got to talk about Super Showdown. We're going to forget what I just said. We're going to skip ahead. We're going to talk about last night's SmackDown. Then we're going to backtrack, wrap up business with the Wednesday Night Wars. That makes the most sense because we are talking Super Showdown, and we need to stay on that subject. So SmackDown opened up with the dirt sheet with Miz and Morrison. They showed some sort of a short film or a trailer. I don't even know what the hell it really was, but it was great. It had cameos by the Miz's dad doing the fist thing. It had John Laurinaitis. And Lance Storm, oh my God. And when it came to legends returning to WWE TV on Friday night, Lance Storm was my guy. Goldberg was there too, but Lance Storm was always good to see him. So that was pretty funny. This whole segment, though, was really just done to set up the tag team title match that Miz and Morrison are going to have with the New Day. Miz and Morrison won a number one contenders match, I think, last week. They're going to be facing the New Day at Super Showdown. New Day comes out, Big E and Kofi, a little back and forth on the mic, and that was it there. Looks like WWE's finally wrapping up, although it's taken forever. They're starting to wrap up the Usos and Roman against Rude and Ziggler and Corbin feud. The Usos would take on Rude and Ziggler in the opening match and beat them. Made pretty handy work of Rude and Ziggler, so they're done. And then later on, you've got Baron Corbin. He's in the production truck for some reason. He's all pissed off because they showed a replay of everything that happened to him last week with the dog food and all that. So he's pissed. He's looking for somebody to blame. He goes into the production truck, grabs some poor guy out of there and beats the shit out of him. And security has to come, stop him. Corbin, I think they go to commercial. They come back. Corbin's back out at ringside now. He's in the aisleway messing around with a fan. Takes a cup of water and dumps it over his head. And that's when Roman comes out and attacks Baron Corbin, beats the shit out of him, and then gets in the ring, grabs the microphone, and says they're going to have one more match, and it's going to be a steel cage match, and that'll be happening at Super Showdown. So that should be your blow-off with the Usos finally, I would think for once and for all, disposing of Rude and Ziggler in the opening match, and then Roman defeating Corbin yet again in a cage. That's got to be the end of it. And that's why I think, the compass is pointing towards Roman and The Fiend for me, even though they could still take a detour. But if The Fiend's going to have a one-off with Goldberg and Roman wraps up business with Corbin, there you go. The next pay-per-view, Elimination Chamber, whatever it is, Roman can probably have a match to earn that title shot against The Fiend. That would be my guess. Speaking of The Fiend, he is going to be taking on Bill Goldberg. Goldberg wasn't on SmackDown in the ring. It was a via satellite deal. So Goldberg basically is doing the interview. He challenges Bray Wyatt for the Universal title. He said his first run was short. He wants another crack at it, and he knows he might be crazy for doing this, but he wants to challenge The Fiend. He's then interrupted by a Firefly Funhouse breaking news segment with Bray Wyatt sitting at the desk with a little tie, and says, "Breaking news, Goldberg has challenged the Fiend," and he's like, he accepts. And Goldberg gets pissed, says, "You can't intimidate me. This shit isn't going to work on me." He takes his mic off and throws it down and just leaves. And basically he's like, "I'll see you at Super Showdown." And Bray Wyatt was like, "That wasn't very nice." So there you go. It's set. Bray Wyatt versus Goldberg, Super Showdown. I didn't hate this. I liked both guys. I actually liked Goldberg being like, "Look, you crazy fuck. You're not going to do this to me. I'm a grown-ass man. This isn't fucking make-believe comedy, comic book bullshit." I kind of like that attitude that he was pushing there. But at the same time, Bray wasn't even fazed by it and was like, "All right, you're going to learn. You're going to learn, Goldberg. You better take me seriously. You better be intimidated by me because I'm going to have your ass in Saudi Arabia." So I believe it or not, because a lot of us have been poking fun and shitting on this match ever since it was rumored earlier this week. It was announced that Goldberg will be on SmackDown, and he's got an announcement to make. He's got a challenge to issue, so it was rumored that he was going to face The Fiend. But I like the whole way the whole thing was pulled off. I think this is great. I like that The Fiend is working with a lot of different guys. His feuds and his programs so far, aside from the Hell in the Cell debacle, have been very good. I love what it's done to Daniel Bryan. We'll talk about him in a minute. And now with him now having Goldberg as like a notch on his belt as another big, major star for him to put down. And like I said earlier, Goldberg's probably taking the payday here. It's probably a pretty sweet-ass payday for that Saudi money. And he probably doesn't give a shit if he wins or loses this thing at all. It's probably all about the Benjamins for him. So this is probably a win-win all the way around. A lot of people have thrown out the idea of Goldberg beating him and then Roman beating Goldberg for the title. It's a good idea in theory because the fans are going to boo their asses off if Roman beats The Fiend. But if he beats Goldberg, the fans will probably cheer that. Because I think the fans are a little bit over Goldberg, and we definitely don't want him being champion. But I don't see it. I think Goldberg will go down to The Fiend. It would make no sense to me to invest that much in the Fiend character only to have him lose to somebody that doesn't wrestle really at all. He's going to lose at some point, but, he's going to lose to somebody on the roster. You know what I mean? And that person is probably going to be Roman Reigns. So that's the way I see it going. But either way, I liked the segment. I liked the match that they put together, and I don't think the match at Super Showdown will be that bad. It's not going to be great, but it'll be better than The Undertaker and Bill Goldberg, and this thing doesn't have to go a long time. This can be really, because when you think about Goldberg's style compared to The Fiend's style, this can be a lot of like one move type of shit. Goldberg attempts a spear and misses, or attempts a spear and hits it, and then gets up. It's probably like one move at a time. Not a whole lot of chain wrestling or anything like that. It'll probably be a lot more psychology, and you can probably mask all of Goldberg's limitations here because he's not in the ring with a normal wrestler. So this match has a potential to not suck as bad as we think it is in our head. That's my opinion. So, Goldberg and The Fiend, what do y'all think? Let me answer some super chats. I've been seeing those rolling in here. Or one of them anyway. Ha! Where'd you go? Scrolling. Steven Scott, good to see you, man. Thank you for the $5. Dude, I appreciate it. Do you think the Usos and Roman should form a faction? Maybe. That would be cool if Usos and Roman formed a faction and clashed with Seth's faction or something like that. They could maybe form a faction, but at the same time, I feel like they have an unwritten faction, like their family, so no matter what they're doing, they're going to be there for each other, and they almost don't need to form a group when they're already attached like that anyway, but they could maybe formally put something together where they actually have a name for their little threesome there. Maybe they start dressing a little more alike. Usos have really changed up their look a lot, from the big colorful stuff they were doing to coming back as the darker heels. Now they've cut their hair. They've gone through several, kind of different versions of themselves. So maybe they can come out there in the riot gear. You got the Shield 2.0. Michael, I agree about the Firefly Funhouse. This is one of my favorite fun houses in a while. I really like the breaking news thing. That was funny. If you were reading like the lower thirds of the ticker there underneath, it was saying things like Ramblin' Rabbit dead at 27 and all sorts of crazy shit. It was good. Really good stuff and good segment on SmackDown. I think I forgot to mention Elias defeating Cesaro. That match took place. Cesaro's not really in a high spot on the card right now, and Elias never seems like he wins, and he won with a top rope elbow, so that was pretty good. I mentioned Daniel Bryan earlier on. He was in the locker room just sitting there all by himself. Heath Slater, forgot he was employed. He approaches him, sits right next to Daniel Bryan, sits down, and starts just annoying the shit out of him. Talking about, man, did you see The Fiend and how crazy that is, him and Goldberg? And, man, remember when you faced The Fiend? And, man, what were you thinking tying yourself to him and all that shit? And just starts criticizing Daniel Bryan. And Bryan's like, I got an idea. How about you and me in the ring right now? You go to a commercial, you come back, you got Daniel Bryan and Heath Slater. And Bryan just kills him. Grabs him, stomps him into unconsciousness, and then puts the label lock on him, and the referee just stops it. Heath Slater didn't even submit. He was unconscious. Daniel Bryan beat him into oblivion, and I love this. How great is this? I've been saying this since day one, that Daniel Bryan and The Fiend went so far above and beyond, in my opinion. I did not think this was going to be a storyline that WWE was going to give a shit about creatively at all. The Fiend won the title in Saudi Arabia. He's going to be going into WrestleMania. He needs some opponents to beat along the way. I didn't think WWE was really going to invest much creatively into the storylines when they know the Fiend's just going to win. They're probably going to do the bare minimum like the lazy fucks they are, but they surprised me and did the exact opposite. The program and the matches with Daniel Bryan went in directions that I didn't expect them to. It was not just a straight, Daniel Bryan faces the Fiend and loses. It changed Daniel Bryan. He approached his feud with the Fiend different than other people did. You had the hair being pulled out. You had the Fiend being taken to the limit. Tables were turned on him once or twice when Daniel Bryan sabotaged and ambushed him. The strap match, a great story was told in that. And now that Daniel Bryan is on the other side of this feud and he's moving on, he's a changed man. They're referencing that in the ring. Daniel Bryan is not the type of guy that would have stomped a guy to death a few months ago. He was, much more loving soul. And now he's, after everything that he went through, went through to hell and back in his program with Bray Wyatt. Now he's got a completely different mentality, which is good because whenever you can come out, of a feud that is seemingly meant to put one guy and one guy only over, it's great when both guys can accomplish something. Daniel Bryan, this made him more interesting. He's got the hair change now and then, and kind of the new attitude and definitely the newer, more aggressive style in the ring. To me, that's awesome. Maybe not in quite the same way, but it sort of reminds me of 94. Bret Hart lost the title to Bob Backlund. He came back and Vince was like, is he a changed man? He was really aggressive. When you watch that Royal Rumble 95 match with Diesel, Bret's like using a chair on Diesel's knees and shit. And they're like, what the hell? This is not what Bret Hart would have done. Did everything that he went through with Backlund change him? And it's kind of like the same thing, just extremely elevated here with Daniel Bryan. So the fact that Daniel Bryan actually wound up a more interesting character on the other side of that Bray Wyatt feud is something that really surprised me. I didn't think it would be that way. I didn't think Daniel Bryan would change at all. I thought it would just be Daniel Bryan throughout the whole thing, lose, and that would be the end of it. And then he'd be back challenging for the Intercontinental title. But the fact that he's now, he's got some mileage left now after the Bray Wyatt, storyline, and he can take this, to new levels. It's just great. It's great writing. Good job, WWE. Can't believe how much I'm praising them this week. What the hell's going on? What universe am I in? Man, I do not like the look of that Intercontinental title. Braun Strowman was out there later on cutting a promo in the ring, talking about how he'll defend that ugly-ass thing anytime, any place. Nakamura and Sami Zayn come out. They're cutting a promo on Strowman. He's then attacked from behind by the Revival, and they all attack Strowman. Nakamura hits him with the Kinshasa to end Braun kind of there. It's going to set up some sort of a rematch, I'm sure, between the two of them. And part of me is also wondering if they're positioning the Revival to just get killed by Braun Strowman before they leave, because the Revival have had nothing to do on TV with Sami Zayn and Nakamura, right? I haven't seen them kind of together. And the Revival have had so many different alliances with Randy Orton and Shane McMahon. And now it looks like they might be in Sammy's back pocket. They help him attack Braun Strowman. What makes me worried about this is that since we've heard the reports of the Revival wanting out, turning down lucrative deals to get the hell out of that company, and their contracts are up in just a couple of months, what do you think? Handicap match, SmackDown, Braun Strowman beats both of them, stacks them on top of each other, and pins them both within 30 seconds. It will happen. You watch. We've got the big Valentine's date coming up next week. Next Friday night is Valentine's Day. God, is it here already? Jesus. Not a fun day for somebody that's in the restaurant business. So Otis, or Tucker, is trying to, help Otis along. He's counting down the days. He's got a calendar there, puts a big heart on the 14th. They show like this montage, just like, like Rocky IV montage of Otis working out and eating pizza. He's trying on different outfits, blazers, midriff shirts, all sorts of stuff. And then I think they cut to like a restaurant. They're practicing eating out, maybe they're practicing having dinner. Let's word it that way. So basically trying to prep himself and train for his big date with Mandy Rose next week. Now, I don't know what this is going to be next week. I'm assuming it's going to be something along the lines of Mark Henry in China, or when Eddie Guerrero took China to the prom, or something like that. It should be entertaining. Normally this is something that I just would have no interest in if it was anybody else. But Otis is so ridiculously entertaining. Maybe R-Truth. If R-Truth was doing something like this, I might watch it as well, but there aren't too many other guys on the roster that would make me give a shit about something like this at all. So this has been fun. It's been fun pretty much every week. It's also been, God, I can't believe I'm going to say this out loud. It's been written well. It really has. So we'll see. I mean, it's just all for comedy purposes. There's no real meaning to this, but it's been entertaining. I should say that. And as long as they're not, just filling the time on these shows with just dumb, hokey, corny crap that makes us puke our guts out, if we can watch segments and laugh at them like we've been doing with this, I think that's a positive thing. So yet another check in the positive box for SmackDown this week. We had an Apollo Crews sighting. So Apollo Crews and Heath Slater apparently still have jobs. He got in the ring and lost to Sheamus in a match. And the main event was a fatal four-way to determine the new number one contender to face Bayley for the SmackDown title. That will not be coming at Super Showdown, I don't think. That's going to be at, whatever the pay-per-view after that is. So Carmella got the victory there. And again, that makes a lot of sense, kind of like Ricochet. Carmella, I do not think is going to be beating Bayley. Carmella, I think, is just a challenger in front of Bayley until WrestleMania, and Bayley will have her true opponent figured out by Mania, which I'm thinking might be Sasha Banks. I don't know, but I certainly don't think Carmella's going to be winning any titles right now. So what's the pay-per-view schedule, y'all? What's the next one after this Super Showdown is? I don't think it's Fastlane. I think it's Elimination Chamber. So maybe we aren't getting a Fastlane this year. So I guess that's where that match will take place. I'm also guessing that's where the Fiend's challenger for WrestleMania will be determined. I'm expecting Roman Reigns to win that. And I'm sure they'll do some shit on the Raw side of things as well. I'm also curious with some of the other pay-per-view locations for the year. I did see that Extreme Rules has been announced to be in San Jose. Still no word on Payback or Money in the Bank. There was some rumors that Money in the Bank could be in LA, and if it is, I want to go to that, because if WrestleMania is going to be here in LA, they're thinking that's where the announcement will formally be made, which would be great. But I don't think this is going to happen either way. I got in the back of my mind that Double or Nothing is coming back to Vegas too in May, and I'd like to go to something. So if Money in the Bank is not here, I might want to try to go to Double or Nothing. But Double or Nothing tickets go on sale this Friday, and I don't want to buy them yet, because if Money in the Bank's going to be here, I'll probably just rather go to that because it's closer. I don't know. It sucks. But I want to go to something this year at Staples Center or Vegas. Stay tuned. As soon as WWE gives us some more dates, I'll let you know. Before we get into NXT and AEW, let's just run down what we have right now for the Super Showdown card. Only 4 matches, I guess, really are announced. Brock Lesnar taking on Ricochet. Bray Wyatt taking on Goldberg. Those are your 2 world title matches. The New Day defending the tag team titles against The Miz and Morrison, and Baron Corbin against Roman Reigns inside of a steel cage. I'm guessing we might still get a Braun Strowman and Nakamura match. We'll probably get something with, Seth and his Messiah and Owens and Samoa Joe, or some sort of a combination thereof. Maybe a tag title match with Murphy and Seth defending the titles. And other than that, Andrade won't be back in time, so there will be no U.S. title match. We might get a Battle Royal, probably some other multi-man bullshit, and maybe another legend or 2 appearing. Maybe The Undertaker appears, or maybe Hogan. I think Hogan will be there doing something. So yeah, Super Showdown card is coming together, and I think that's taking place. I don't have the date, but I want to say it's February 27th. I think that's right. So a little bit less than 3 weeks. It'll be here. Yay. And I still got to figure out my schedule for that day, how I'm going to watch that, when I'm going to review it. Stay tuned. I'll keep you guys posted on that. Let's backtrack all the way back to Wednesday now, because we are all over the place. We started with wrestling news, and we talked about Raw, then we jumped all the way to Friday to talk about SmackDown. Now we're going to go back to the middle of the week and discuss the Wednesday Night Wars, because I loved both of these shows. I did. I loved both of these shows. Let's talk about the ratings first. NXT got crushed again this week, pretty bad on this one. AEW got 928,000, so they have still not broken that 1 million mark, except for that first week, I think. And NXT, 770,000. So this was a little bit more of a significant win than it was last week. But again, with the ratings, this is very good for AEW, in terms of like their numbers. At least they know they are outdrawing NXT, and I'm sure that's a good moral victory for them. In the end, though, it doesn't really mean much at all, because there have been plenty of weeks since I've been doing these reviews of Dynamite and NXT that I've just considered NXT to have the much better, much polished, much just overall better show than AEW, but AEW's won in the ratings. This week, man, it was close. I mean, I struggled. I sat here, changed my mind like 3 different times in terms of which show I picked this week to win, or that I thought won or had the better show. They were both just really good. So we'll get into that in a minute. Let's start with NXT, though, and then we'll wrap up with AEW. NXT opened up with the Broserweights coming out. They had their big, jacked up, souped up golf cart with the big trophy in the back, and they're driving in, and I'm loving the contrast between the laid-back stoner Matthew Riddell and Pete Dunne, who's just Mr. Serious Man. And they get in the ring. They talk about their match at TakeOver Portland, because by winning the Dusty Cup, they've earned a tag team title shot against the Undisputed Era. The Undisputed Era comes out, and I think that's when, I don't know if it was O'Reilly. I think it was O'Reilly that referred to Dunn and Riddle as Matthew Riddell and Pete Dunne. Bobby Fish says that they aren't going to mess with them right now because they have bigger fish to fry, which prompts Matt Riddle to say, how much fish could Bobby Fish fry if Bobby Fish could fry fish? All in all, really fun segment. The only thing that I don't like is, men, what is your problem? I got to just call you out here. I cannot stand the look that Pete Dunne was wearing. Why are men wearing skin-tight pants that come up way high on the ankle, and then they wear shoes with no socks? That is just absurd. Maybe I'm talking like a complete old man here, like an old geezer, but I could never in a million years see myself wearing something like that. And if I did, I'd be uncomfortable as shit with that tight ass stuff. Oh my God, it was driving me crazy. I just don't understand men's fashion today. And Pete Dunne is a badass. He's an ass kicking machine coming out there dressing like a freaking weirdo, man. I don't understand it. Don't understand fashion at all. I think it looks ridiculous. I much rather, I like Matt Riddle's look a little bit more, even though he was out there in sandals too. Anyway, Pete Dunne, knock that shit off. Start dressing like a regular person, please. We had Angel Garza defeating Isaiah Swerve Scott. A pretty good match here. This was fun. Garza, there's been a lot of talk about him from the fans, everywhere, that he's like got something. Like, people are feeling him, that he has potential to maybe be even a main roster star to the level of an Andrade or something like that. He's got all the tools. Rich family, history in wrestling, and he's good on the mic, good look, great in the ring. His match here was very good. He was on Raw working with Rey Mysterio this past week. He's just, I don't even know if he's really going to get back the Cruiserweight title after the match, by the way. After he won, he did get on the mic and vowed to win it back from Jordan Devlin, because I don't think he took the pin in the triple threat. So I don't know if he'll find his way back to that or not, but if they want to move him up to the main roster or something, I'd be perfectly fine with that, because so far I'm liking him, and it sounds like a lot of you guys are too. We had Killian Dane taking on Dominik Dijakovic in a pretty good match here. They set this thing up in a pre-tape at the Performance Center, and this match it wasn't really announced as a number one contenders match, but it was. Really good match, hard-hitting match between these two giants. I didn't realize how tall Killian Dane was. They said he was 6'4". Jesus, he is much bigger than I thought. Dijakovic wound up getting the victory there, and as he's leaving and he's up on the ramp, Keith Lee comes out, congratulates him. The two are kind of, homies now, because they had some history dating back to last year. So good sportsmanship there, and it was announced right there on the graphic that would be your North American title match at TakeOver Portland. Keith Lee defending against Dominik Dijakovic, and I certainly don't think Dominik's going to be winning the title here. Keith Lee just won the belt. He's going to have a little bit of a run, but the match should be good. I mean, it's a match we've seen a couple of times, but still, we know it's going to be solid. And I was thinking about Dominik Dijakovic too. I like him a lot. He's huge. He's great in the ring. Good look. Everything, all the tools, but there's still something about him to me that doesn't completely stand out. That even though I like him and everything, it's like I can't envision him really succeeding, because there's already a lot of guys that have what he has. I almost wonder if he'd be better off finding a tag team partner, maybe someone with a similar size to Randy Orton, as far as his height and everything, and, form some sort of a big badass team. Somebody that can, go toe-to-toe or head-to-head with the Viking Raiders or AOP or big teams like that. I don't know. And even though I like Dominik and everything he's got to offer, I just wonder if he will ever find true success in the WWE. Because, I just feel like as good as he is, he doesn't stand out that much, because there's a lot of guys that are good like him. As good as he is he better than Drew McIntyre? I don't think so. So, I don't know. We'll see what the future holds for him. I wish him well, and I hope nothing but the best for him. I just, my gut tells me that he needs something else, but I don't know. That's just me. I really enjoyed the backstage interview with Gargano and Finn Balor. That was fun. Really well done. Gargano probably cut one of the better promos I can remember him doing. He called out Finn Balor. He goes, I want NXT Finn Balor. I want you at your best. He wants to be the face of NXT. He, main evented and competed in all of those takeovers in a row. He feels like he's more of a face of NXT than Finn Balor was, even though Finn Balor, I think up to this point, has been the longest running NXT champion ever. So he wants NXT Finn Balor, not Raw Finn Balor, who's been losing to Bobby Lashley for 16 weeks in a row, I think is what he said. So sweet little burn there. Finn counters that by saying not only will, he beat Johnny Gargano, it'll be the last match of Johnny Gargano's life because he'll never wrestle again when Finn Balor is done with him. So he's threatening to cripple Gargano, and then Gargano threatens to kill Finn Balor by saying he's going to take the flag of the NXT and drive it right through Finn Balor's heart. But Finn Balor says, you can't kill me because I have no heart. So all in all, good little segment there, and I am ready for that match, man. I was ready for that back at War Games. Isn't that when it was originally supposed to happen? So we've been waiting for this one for a while. And this one, I gotta be honest, is a little bit hard to predict. Finn Balor at some point is going to have to lose in NXT. And I feel like he's already won his matches so far. Maybe this can be where he drops it. I don't know if he busts out the demon. That might be a good thing to do too. I mean, if Gargano was saying, I want NXT Finn Balor, I want TakeOver Finn Balor, every time Finn Balor wrestled on takeovers, I'm pretty sure he was the demon, was he not? So if he comes out of the demon as the demon, then I think he beats Balor. And then maybe they do a rematch and Gargano beats regular Balor. Or maybe Gargano wins here and they do a rematch and Balor is the Fiend is the demon and he beats Gargano. I don't know. But I hope we see the demon soon in NXT. I'm ready for it. Either way, it's going to be a great match at TakeOver. I am ready for that. We had a Casey Catanzaro sighting. She is back. Her word is that she was going to retire or she left the company, and then there was talk that she's been coming back. She was spotted back at the Performance Center. I believe she's dating Ricochet, right? And she's good. I mean, she's super tiny, though, but she's really athletic. But this was pretty much just a tune-up for Mercedes Martinez, who they even had a hype package. They aired one of those a couple of segments prior to this. So then she comes out and faces Casey and makes pretty quick work of her. So they're pushing her huge. I'm glad. They're going to need some people because it looks like Shayna Baszler is heading onto the main roster. We don't know what's going to happen with Rhea Ripley and Charlotte yet and Bianca Belair. So you need somebody else there as a top contender, and it looks like that's what they're positioning Mercedes Martinez to be. We had Tommaso Ciampa attacking the Undisputed Era backstage. The Undisputed Era was tearing through the backstage looking for him, pushing people around, bullying guys. They shaved one guy's head who was just randomly getting a haircut right outside of Gorilla, because where else would you get a haircut? When I needed a haircut, I drove right to a WWE show and went right to the backstage area and said, fix this shit. So apparently that's what that guy was doing, and he got part of his head shaved for it. So eventually, Ciampa finds them, ambushes them, attacks them. The brawl spills out into the ring. The Broserweights come out to help out, and the brawl is on, and that's when Regal comes out and says, all right, there's going to be a 6-man main event later on. So that will be on tap for your main event. Jordan Devlin, your newly crowned Cruiserweight champion, defeated Tyler Breeze in another really good match. I like this one too, along with the Garza and Swerve Scott match, maybe even better. Tyler Breeze is so good. It's a shame that he'll never do anything, but I'm glad to see him back in NXT, working with the talent there and stuff. I just feel like that's where he has value, and this match was really good. I did not know a ton about Jordan Devlin, prior to maybe late 2019, but definitely like him. The dude's awesome, and I enjoyed it. Next up was the big, really fun segment with Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley, and Charlotte. Now, this thing was advertised as being a face-to-face interview in the ring with Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley, because that's your NXT TakeOver Portland match between those two. But it kind of doesn't really go that way, as Bianca comes out first and gets on the mic, and Charlotte comes out. So before Rhea Ripley can even come out there, Charlotte interrupts Bianca. The two of them go at it on the mic for a while until Rhea Ripley finally comes out there. And now it's like weird. Now you got all three of them in there. And I think this is the moment in my life, I'll never forget where I was. February 5th, which was Wednesday, 2020, was the day that I completely head over heels fell in love with Bianca Belair. She is not only becoming my favorite wrestler, she's becoming my favorite person in the history of mankind. Jesus, man, she is good. I love her on the mic. And I've been saying this about her from the start. I wasn't sold on her at first. The first time I saw her, I'm like, oh, that hair is annoying. They're going to make too much of a big deal about it. I don't want that wrestler. Her 100% of her gimmick is to twirl that fucking hair around. I didn't think she was that great in the ring. But as we went through the last 12, 13, 14 months here, she's gotten better. She's gotten better. I've said so on podcast after podcast. All the way, I remember like last summer saying, I'm starting to like this Bianca Belair. And she's been getting better and better. Great showings for herself. Good showing and outing, I think, at War Games. The outing she had at the Royal Rumble was fantastic. She is super crazy, ridiculous, athletic, and she's got all of the tools. She's got star potential, and best of all, she is so great on the mic. She is so unique because she's one of the only pieces of talent in that whole damn company. 175 wrestlers, whatever they have. I can probably count on one hand the people who, when they speak on the mic, they don't sound like they're acting. I mean, she's like, girl, you need to back off. Like, I love everything she was saying. She wasn't speaking like somebody that's memorized a script. She sounds like somebody that's just speaking, that's just like, this is a real life thing. She's not acting at all. And it was great. Great looks at the camera. The way she was just kind of looking around and looking at everybody. She has just got everything it takes, in my opinion. And I am, the sky is the limit for Bianca Belair. And she wasn't about to take any of Charlotte's shit. How about the outfit Charlotte was wearing? Jesus. But Charlotte tries to like shoo her away. Remember, like kind of puts her hand in her face. Get out of here. This is between me and Ripley. And Bianca's like, oh, hell no, girl. So I like that she was not going to be pushed around. She was not going to be bullied. She got right in their face. And that's when Rhea kind of stood up for Bianca, being like, we're NXT. Bianca said, what did she say to Charlotte? I'd be dying. She goes, you don't even go here. That was the funniest part. So the two of them then, who have a match together at NXT TakeOver Portland, attack Charlotte. Beat her down, beat her up. Charlotte rolls out of the ring and retreats. So Charlotte was supposed to be on NXT to answer Rhea's challenge, but we never got that. So now you have to wonder, that that's going to be the match, or maybe it's going to be a variation of that. With Bianca Belair getting involved now, maybe you could do a triple threat. I think Charlotte and Rhea would be more fun, but I don't know if WWE really wants to beat any of them. So if they want Charlotte to win the NXT title again and just to go down there for a few matches and have a short run in NXT, maybe they don't want to beat Rhea by doing that. So if you insert Bianca Belair into there, you can do a triple threat. Bianca can take the pin, Charlotte can win the title, and then Rhea can win it back or something. Maybe they go in that direction. But I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago when Bianca Belair when she won the match to get the right to face Rhea Ripley. I'm like, it's not time yet. As much as I love her, I think Bianca Belair needs to have a similar run in NXT to what Chris Benoit did in the WWE, where it took him a while. He was there. He had the tools. He was even getting the title matches, and a lot of fans said he should win the title, but he didn't. It took some time until you got to the Royal Rumble. He won it and then went on to win the title at WrestleMania. I'd like to see something similar happen with Bianca Belair. She's already had some title shots. She lost a couple of times to Shayna Baszler, right? And now I think she's even lost to Rhea Ripley. Now she's got to face Rhea Ripley on pay-per-view. But Ripley just got launched at the end of 2019. I don't think she's going to be dropping the belt yet, especially if they've got plans for her and Charlotte at WrestleMania. So Bianca loses here. But she keeps plugging away. She keeps tearing through everybody else. She keeps winning her matches. And a few months down the line, I had mentioned maybe like SummerSlam weekend, you do the big rematch, Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair, and this time Bianca wins the title, and she's the new face of NXT, and Rhea is up to the main roster. So I think Bianca will have her day. But the way she impressed me on NXT, I feel like she's ready for the main roster now. I mean, she's like ready. She has what it takes, but I don't want to see her go there because it's just going to suck. They don't do anything with anybody on the main roster. So I'd almost rather see Bianca hang around at NXT for a little while longer, fall short here, but in the end, get the title. Have that moment, where the fans are just applauding and cheering for the road that she took to get there, how hard she worked, the ups and downs, the title matches, the falling short, coming so close, finally getting the big day. I would love to see that story told. But the way she was in the middle of that thing between Charlotte and Rhea Ripley makes me think, don't brush her off too quickly, for the takeover match. I'm not expecting her at all to beat Rhea Ripley, but shit, maybe if Charlotte comes out and gets in the middle there, maybe Bianca Belair pulls off the upset and she's champion, and now you got a triple threat. And now Bianca's going in to WrestleMania as the champion, and Ripley and Charlotte are the challengers. I don't know. still, I think, my instinct is telling me Bianca falls short at TakeOver, and it's Ripley and Charlotte at WrestleMania. But, maybe she can find her way in there. All I know is I love that girl, and Bianca Belair is going to be awesome. I think she has everything it takes. I almost think she's, well, nobody's beyond WWE fucking them up, but I think Bianca is so good, it's going to be hard for WWE to fuck her up, So we'll see. WWE's surprised us before. But way to go. Great segment. Love the whole thing there, and I love the way it still kept the door open as to what we're going to see at WrestleMania. Finally, in the main event, big news coming out of the main event as well. It was the big 6-man match. It was Undisputed Era, which was Cole, Fish, and O'Reilly taking on the Broserweights and Tommaso Ciampa. Really good match here, fun. Everything was all over the place. I couldn't make heads or tails of who the legal man was during this whole thing. Roderick Strong was interfering like a motherfucker in this thing. Finally, after the millionth time of him sticking his nose in the match, it leads to a DQ. Big beatdown continues after the match with the Undisputed Era taking out the spray painting the big yellow X on the back of Tommaso Ciampa. That's when the lights go out, and the 3 rings that we saw last week with Wednesday's date, 2/5/2020 on them, reappeared on the screen. They came together to form that little 3-way glasses thing that Velveteen Dream wears, and a lot of fans knew that. They were calling it out and saying it's going to be Velveteen returning next week, and it was. He came out, music hits, runs down to the ring, and just goes crazy. He laid out all 4 members of the Undisputed Era, fought them all off. They were coming at him, and he was just swinging hard. And then at the end of it, after he runs them all off, he rips off his tights to reveal a pair of airbrush tights that apparently, I had to look this up because I didn't know who was on his tights. Apparently, it was Roderick Strong's wife, Marina Shafir, and their kid, and Velveteen Dream. Because I think Roderick, they were feuding prior to him getting injured when he was still North American champion. So that looks like it's going to continue here. And what I liked about that, it was such an obvious throwback to Ravishing Rick Rude back in '88 when he wore Cheryl Roberts on his tights. And then Jake Roberts came down to the ring and stripped his tights off. Rick Rude always had tights like that, mocking his opponents or whatever. But he actually did the wife thing before, or they've done the wife thing before. And this was in very similar fashion. So I like that a lot. Only this time, Velveteen. And imagine doing something like that and being the babyface. My God, how times have changed. But really good to see Velveteen Dream back. I thought he was coming back at the Royal Rumble. I thought there was a bunch of times he was going to return. He's back now, and that's great. NXT needs him, and they could probably set up Roderick Strong and Velveteen for TakeOver Portland, I'm guessing. Here's what we have for TakeOver Portland so far. Adam Cole defending the NXT title against Tommaso Ciampa. Undisputed Era defending the tag team titles against the Broserweights. Rhea Ripley defending the NXT Championship. No women's in there anymore against Bianca Belair. Johnny Gargano taking on Finn Balor, which is going to be phenomenal. Tegan Nox and Dakota Kai. That match is also taking place at TakeOver in a street fight. That was announced on NXT on Wednesday. And Keith Lee defending the North American title against Dominik Dijakovic. And like I said, we're probably going to get Velveteen Dream and Roderick Strong as well, which means that right there will be 7 matches. Possibly, well, I guess, could they add one more? Could they add one more on Wednesday on the Go Home show? Maybe. Actually, that's probably the one they're going to add is Roderick and Velveteen. So it looks like 7 matches, possibly 8 if they do something on the pre-show or whatever. And this looks like it's going to be a full-blown long pay-per-view. So my neighbors or somebody's making a ton of noise over there. So Portland's looking good coming up next Sunday. I'm ready for that. There's not one single match on that card when I look at it that I'm not looking forward to. If there was one that I was looking forward to the least, it would probably be, and how good is this? It would probably be Keith Lee and Dijakovic, which I know that match is going to be great. I'm just expecting Lee to win. But I'm looking forward to the Tegan Nox and Dakota Kai street fight. That's going to be good. I'm loving Dakota Kai ever since she turned heel. Balor and Gargano, we already know, is going to be match of the fucking year. Bianca Belair is going to impress me, and I'm going to have hearts floating up from my head with how awesome I think she is. The Broserweights, I feel like, have a chance to dethrone Undisputed Era. I mentioned weeks ago that I feel like when they walked away at the end of 2019 on that award show with every plaque possible, there's nothing to do. At this point, now you got to start booking the wheels coming off this faction. And it started with Roderick, and I said Undisputed Era, after they lost in the Dusty Cup, they dropped the belts, and Ciampa regains the title. There is a little bit of talk, I should have mentioned this, I did see a rumor that maybe Tommaso Ciampa was injured. Hopefully he's healthy, provided that he is. I think he's got an excellent chance to beat Cole for the title, and then all of the belts could be off of Undisputed Era prior to WrestleMania. Or they could drag it out a little bit further and have that be the end of the group. But if it is, what do they do? Do they go to the main roster, or do they split off and break away and remain in NXT? Do 2 of them remain in NXT and 2 go to the main roster? What do they do there? I mean, I don't know if Undisputed Era is going to be as good on SmackDown. I can't see those guys walking around the SmackDown locker room beating everybody up because they're all little, and it just feels better. They feel like they're more over and more important in NXT. And even though I feel like the Undisputed Era has had such a good run that they might be reaching the end of the line, and they're running its course in that, it makes me sad because I don't feel like they can get any better than they are. So maybe I'm reading way too much into that. Maybe WWE's like, yo, good mic work. Are you stupid? We're not going to break up a good thing. But they've done it before, and it feels like, to me, all the signs are pointing to that. So anyway, excellent NXT on Wednesday night. Really did a good job of, building up TakeOver Portland, and I think that's going to be a great pay-per-view. On paper, when I look at this right now, it's going to be really hard for AEW Revolution to have a better pay-per-view than Portland. I mean, how can you do better than these matches? I mean, these matches just by default, I think this talent can put themselves on autopilot and put on a hell of a pay-per-view here. So it's going to be tough for Revolution to pull that off. But we'll see. They've got their pay-per-view coming up on the 29th, I believe. So speaking of AEW, let's talk about them. Like I said, very solid victory for them in the ratings. And let me back up here to the chat real quick before we dive into the show. We got a little bit more time left, about 30 minutes I'll be talking here, and then I'll be bailing out of here. Will you guys do me a big favor for the 140 some of you that are in here right now watching? Will you smash the thumbs up and give this video a like? I would very much appreciate it. The audio to this will be up on my website later tonight. As soon as I'm done here, I got to head to work. But when I get home, I will pull off the audio and post that so you guys can download it or catch it on Stitcher and iTunes and all that good stuff. So that's the usual deal there on Saturdays. And yeah, we'll wrap up discussion here with Dynamite. Talk about that, and if I have some time, I'll answer some questions, and that'll be a wrap on this week's Winged Eagle. I like Garza's finisher, too. I'm reading some of the comments about my Pete Dunne fashion criticisms. Wheezy, I am too, man. I'm just loving Bianca Belair, man. She's just great. She is phenomenal. I thought, it's so funny, like, it's just how people can grow on you, because when I first saw her, I just thought that hair was stupid. I'm like, God, WWE's going to make this, her whole gimmick, everything about her is going to be surrounded around that fucking hair. And at what point does an opponent take the hair and tie it to the damn ring post? But she's so more multidimensional than that, She's great on the mic, and she's a super strong, athletic person. She's got crazy strength. She's got crazy athleticism. She's just improved leaps and bounds in the ring. She doesn't have a downside right now, basically. When you look at somebody and say, okay, what do they need to get better at? What do they need to work on? I think she's already worked on everything she needs to work on. She needed to get better in the ring. She is. She needs to get more comfortable out there. She is. Her ring work is becoming smoother and smoother, and she seems completely comfortable on the mic, completely herself. She doesn't speak like she's forcing anything. She doesn't speak like she's reading or memorizing lines. She speaks like an actual human person would speak in the world, And seems like, it amazes me how rare that is to find in wrestling. But anyway, let's talk AEW Dynamite this week. Another good show. I said I enjoyed NXT. I enjoyed this too. We opened up with Ortiz taking on John Moxley. So this is a one-on-one match. We had Sammy Guevara and Chris Jericho on commentary for this. You knew Moxley wasn't going to be dropping this match to Ortiz, but Ortiz did all of his crazy, funny stuff in the match, which I enjoyed. But in the end, Moxley hit the paradigm shift for the win. After the match, Moxley, I guess the attack kind of continues. You've got Santana in the ring now. He's jumped in there to attack as he was at ringside for the whole thing. Moxley turns the tables on him and then pulls out the car keys to that $4 million car that Jericho gave him, or that he stole from Jericho. Pulls out the car key and jams it right in the eye of Santana. So the whole thing was, set up to be an eye for an eye. So Moxley's out there wrestling with it's almost like an athletic eye patch now. And now he's taken out Santana's eye. And I'm loving that. I'm loving Moxley in AEW. He has just been so good and so over and so fun to watch. And watching Jericho, really go crazy during, Moxley's assault on Santana there, and it's almost like Jericho is beginning to realize that Moxley is not to be trifled with, and your AEW title is in a lot of jeopardy, my friend, because Moxley doesn't give a shit. And this is exactly what I was hoping would happen to Moxley leaving WWE. I'm like, okay, fine, if you want to walk away from that money and that contract and your wife and all that shit, I hope it's fulfilling. I hope you're happy, and it certainly seems like he is. And I think he's going to win the title. I think he's going to win the title against Jericho on the 29th. And we got time to talk about that. But based on the way they're, building all of this, that's certainly what it feels like to me. Now, what I loved about this is that after getting your eye jammed out with a sharp metal object, no, don't go to the hospital. No need for that. Just go to the stairwell and sit down with the inner circle and hold a towel up to your eye. That's all you need. So they go backstage later on and they're showing, Santana back there. And this is like a long time later. He had plenty of time to go to the hospital, but he didn't. He's just back there and there's blood on the towel. And I said as soon as that happened, I'm like, oh, there you go. That's going to be your match next week. And that was announced. It'll be one-eyed Santana taking on a one-eyed Moxley next week on Dynamite. So I don't know by the time they get to the Jericho match with Moxley, if Moxley's going to have the eye patch, if his eye will be healed or not. Don't really know. But I'm loving Moxley with his eye patch. I think it's a good little addition to his character. He was hilarious, rocking that thing on the Jericho Cruise the whole time, singing karaoke with the eye patch on. Yeah, it's safe to say that Moxley's having fun, and I'm happy for him. We had SCU taking on the Best Friends here. This match kind of annoyed me a little bit because I like the Best Friends. I like the gimmick. I think it's so funny with Orange Cassidy and all of that, but they're in the ring. You got to think about tag team matches in AEW. Wins and losses matter, rankings matter, and all that shit. Everybody's trying to get title shots. The Best Friends fucked themselves over here by having the match won, having SCU in a compromised spot, but they were so interested in going in for the big hug that it distracted them enough that SCU turned the tables and got the win. So had they not chosen to hug each other, they might have picked up the victory here and increased their rating as far as tag team title contention. So that was kind of dumb. Didn't like that. After the match, the Dark Order came out and they attacked Orange Cassidy. Orange Cassidy, for some reason, got in the ring with them and they beat the shit out of him. And that's when Christopher Daniels came out to make the save, and all the Dark Order, they retreated. They left him alone, didn't touch him after assaulting everybody else. They leave Christopher Daniels alone. Now, I was the first person, I swear, like in week 1 or 2 of Dynamite, I said Daniels should come back as a heel. He's about to be 50 years old. And he used to be that fallen angel gimmick. He's kind of had taken on like a darker side before. I would love to see a return of that character. And when the Dark Order burst onto the scene, I think I was one of the first people to call that. I'm like, man, Daniels should be one of the guys under the hood. I thought it was going to happen months ago. It was I can't remember what segment it was now, but all the Dark Order guys were out there and, they're all under hoods. I'm like, at one point, one of those guys needs to take his hood off and reveal that it's Christopher Daniels. Now, there's also, there's some sort of an exalted one, and I think that's where a lot of fans are thinking that it could be Daniels, and I hope that it is. I think that would be a great gimmick change for him, but is it too obvious, So I think it could go either way here, because with the Dark Order kind of retreating and not touching him, that just raises a lot of red flags, right? So I'm hoping it might be a red herring. I'm hoping it might be AEW saying, okay, let's see if we can fool the fans. Let's make them think that they're smart as shit by seeing the Daniels turn from a mile away, but we don't wind up doing it. Daniels never does turn. He never intended to turn, and it turns out to be somebody else. I guess it could go either way there, but I kind of am hoping for a Daniels turn. I am. He's getting up there. I think, his ring work should now probably be secondary to a character in mic work, just given his age, you know what I mean? So if he can be the leader or the figurehead or the mouthpiece of a major faction, getting in the ring and wrestling only occasionally, maybe even getting title shots, Christopher Daniels and Moxley might be a fun match. I watched that match on the cruise, actually. They had that one-on-one, but if Moxley winds up winning the title, Daniels turns heel, becomes the leader of the Dark Order, and he's got all this backup behind him, and, Moxley could be in for a run for his money. Who knows? But that's kind of the way I feel like it's going. We had Yuka Sakazaki making an appearance in AEW. We have not seen her since last summer, I think. I don't know if it was Fyter Fest or Fight for the Fallen. It was one of those. She was involved in the 6-woman match, I think. She's back here taking on Britt Baker. Now, Britt Baker has recently turned heel. Her heel segments on TV have been hit or miss. A lot of people felt like the Jericho Cruise was a miss, but the last couple of weeks on TV has been better, and it has been. Now, here I'm surprised they had Britt Baker lose. She kind of took an upset loss, got rolled up and pinned by Sakazaki here, and it made her snap, beating up Yuka, and I think knocking one of her teeth out, or a fake tooth, and then putting the claw on her, and there's blood and all this shit. So it really highlighted Britt Baker's ruthlessness. But if they're trying to get her over as a badass, I don't know if I'm having her lose here. There's a difference between, like, back when Jericho turned heel in WCW, when he was, lower on the card, like TV champion, and when he was losing matches, he started having temper tantrums, slamming the chair against the ring post and shit like that. That's not the type of character Britt Baker is. She's more of a more serious, in-your-face ass kicker. So I don't think, I think she could have won this match and beat her and continued to also beat her down. But I get, you're trying to build female talent, so I guess at the end of the day, it's not the worst thing in the world, but I don't know if I would have booked Baker to lose there. No big deal, though. Decent match, and I kind of liked what they did at the end. And it was a very rare, good female segment, because the women's division in AEW is shit compared to WWE's. So this was a better segment, and I appreciated that. We had the 6-man match up next. It was the 8-man tag. Butcher and the Blade and the Lucha Brothers taking on the Elite, Kenny Omega, Hangman Page, and the Young Bucks. Good stuff in this match, too. Really wild match, as most matches with these type of wrestlers are. Flips and flops and high spots all over the place. They do a spot in the ring where Adam Page injures his knee, but he won't tag out. And it ultimately costs the Elite the match, as he wound up getting pinned and losing the match for the Elite. After the match, Tony Schiavone gets in the ring to attempt to interview Kenny Omega, and they do the thing again where every week Pac is on the screen beating up one of Kenny Omega's friends. This time, Pac says, since you don't seem to care about your friend Michael that I was murdering the past few weeks on TV, maybe you'll care about her. And you see Riho, little 90-pound Riho in the back there. I'm like, oh my God, Pac isn't going to put the brutalizer on Riho, is he? And Omega, much like this, reminded me of what they did. They did a segment in 98 when WWE it was an I Quit match. I think it was with The Rock and Triple H. I think it was. I can't remember who it was. But they got in the ring, they grabbed a hold of Chyna and threatened to rip her arms off or something like that. And Triple H is like, okay, I quit. You win. That might have even been the night that Chyna turned. It was kind of like that. So basically, Pac's like, I want that rubber match. And Omega's like, fine, you got it. Don't hurt my girlfriend. But Pac's like, I would never hit a woman. I would not do that. But she can, and then he walks away, and Nyla Rose creams poor Riho from behind. And they got a title match coming up as well, I think maybe next week even on Dynamite. Am I right? So Omega now has agreed to the rubber match, but he's already booked in a match, I think, for Revolution, so I don't think Omega and Pac will take place there. They could have that take place on TV, which would be absolutely fine, but that match is now on the horizon, and could be a good way. I mentioned this weeks ago. They're building to this shit with Adam Page, and I've been saying all along, I'm like, well, obviously he's probably going to turn heel, turn on the Elite, and I said the good place for them to possibly do that might be in Omega's match with Pac. So I don't know if that'll come after they drop the belts or before or whatever, but maybe Page plays a role in Omega losing, maybe not necessarily turning, but playing a role in his loss. But I'm also seeing something here that could backfire, maybe not backfire is the wrong word, but might be different than what AEW is intending here with the Adam Page stuff, because I feel like he's kind of getting over with the stuff. Later on, they're backstage teasing more dissension between the Elite, and the Bucks are mad at Adam Page, and at one point they take his beer away from him, and then he just, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he picks up a whole pitcher of beer and starts drinking it. So the pitcher of beer was nowhere to be seen in the shot, but after they steal his beer, he just drinks out of that, got a huge laugh from the audience, and he's funny. And that's good, because I think one of my biggest critiques with Adam Page when he got the title match against Jericho to crown the inaugural champion, I'm like, it can't be Page. It's got to be Jericho. Page isn't, wrestling fans know who he is, but he's not really that over with the main audience, maybe not even with the majority of the wrestling fans. He doesn't have a whole lot of character to him. Now that he's doing this drinking stuff and this cowboy shit, and he's developing his personality and he's been entertaining, and the fans so far are liking him, even though he's causing all sorts of problems for the Elite, causing him matches, doesn't seem to give a shit, disinterested, kind of like how Shawn Michaels was. Right before leaving the Rockers, he was doing the same thing, sitting up on the top turnbuckle, looking at his watch, messing around with the crowd, just completely not invested in what he's supposed to do. But with Page, they're doing the same thing, I'm assuming with the intent to have him go heel. But the more over he gets and the more entertaining he is, AEW might not want to turn him heel because fans are kind of liking cheering him right now. They're enjoying laughing at him. So it's kind of interesting how they're taking something as serious as an elite implosion and combining it with like comedy. So it's a really kind of close line there, I suppose, that they're treading. But the more and more Adam Page continues to get the laughs and the entertainment from the audience, the less likely AEW might be to turn him heel. But they've been laying the groundwork the whole time for them to turn him heel. So how are they going to swerve us and change that if they say, okay, maybe it's not a good time right now to turn Adam Page because he's getting over with this stuff? This is a true test on them because with WWE, they wouldn't give a shit. They just continue on and say, oh, fans like him, like they do with Rusev. Too bad he's a heel now. Fuck you, fans. Fuck what you like. We're going to do what we want. Will AEW do the same thing? If the fans get behind Page to the point where they don't want him to turn heel, they want to continue to cheer him, will AEW make adjustments to do that for him? And how will they handle the Young Bucks or how will they handle the Elite's implosion then? Maybe Omega will turn instead or something. I don't know. And we're going to get that match, tag team title match, Young Bucks against Omega and Page. It's got to happen, right? So we'll see. I'm liking it, though. And I think all in all, it's pretty entertaining stuff. I'm also liking the potential feud on the horizon with Darby Allin and Sammy Guevara. Darby did like a little video package there where he's burning the cardboard cutout of Sammy Guevara and Jericho hugging. How dare you, Darby, do that? I talked about Sammy Guevara last week. He's one of the nicest dudes ever. Met him on the cruise. Super awesome. I like him. And I think that's a pretty cool feud. I mean, they're both really similar as far as their like age and their size and their ring style. But, they're very different characters. Sammy's, the more, idiot kid who's more interested in Snapchatting and social media, and Darby's kind of like the dark Jeff Hardy type of guy. I like the pairing there. They did the thing on TV last week where Sammy jammed the skateboard into Darby's throat. Very Savage and Steamboat 86 style with the ring bell. I liked it, and I think the two of them can have a fun little program because they're two very different characters, and I think it would be impossible to make a program between those two boring. So I'm looking forward to that. Joey Janela took on Chris Sabian. Lots of interference from Penelope Ford in this one. That allowed Kip Sabian to actually roll up Joey Janela for the win with a handful of tights. So that issue is nowhere near over yet. And in the main event, this was the big segment, arguably the best segment of the week, if you guys would agree. I don't know. Cody Rhodes gets his 10 lashes from MJF, one of the many stipulations that Cody has to go through in order to get that match with MJF at Revolution. This is the night that he does the 10 lashes. So this was well done. I wasn't sure when I first heard these stipulations. I'm like, what are these people smoking, making up these stipulations? They're so out there, but I didn't realize it was going to be as good as it was. So Cody comes out. MJF is in the ring with Wardlow. He's mocking Cody, giving him shit. Cody takes off his, jacket and his shirt, and MJF demands that he wants Cody Rhodes his own belt. So Cody takes his own belt off, and the lashes start. Cody turns around and he takes a real hard one, and we get a few lashes in, and he's going down with each one. He's got this just look of pain on his face. You can see the welts starting to, bubble up on his back. I mean, they're not faking this shit at all. Cody's out there literally taking these 10 lashes. And lots of the talent start coming out on the stage, primarily heels, but they start walking out just out of interest. I kind of like that they were making it like, because you don't see that very often in WWE, to have something happen in the ring where like the talent's like, y'all, we got to go take a look at this. So they kind of start coming out there. As Cody's getting whipped to death, you have Dustin Rhodes coming out there and Arn Anderson. Dustin even asks to take the remaining lashes for his brother, and MJF's like, no, get the fuck out of here. It's got to be Cody. So I think they get up to like 7 or 8, maybe on the 7th or 8th one, he hands the belt over to Wardlow, and Wardlow lays in Cody with a shot. Cody is just on his back. I mean, he's got this look in his face, on his eyes. He's close to drooling. He's in a shit ton of pain. They get to like number 9, and I think that's when Brandy comes out. Brandy completely, no, not Nightmare Collective Brandy, just regular ass Brandy. And there's been some talk that the Nightmare Collective is either number 1 scrapped or just relegated down to being on Dark, which is fine with me. But Brandy comes out to show her concern, and I think the final lash that Cody takes, he takes it facing MJF. MJF whips him right across his chest. Cody goes down. Cody survives the 10 lashes. MJF is pissed because the whole deal here is Cody's going to give up prior to getting to that 10th lash, which means he's not going to get the match against MJF. MJF not only is going to get to whip him to death, but he's not going to have to fight him either. But Cody, you knew he was going to survive. I thought the whole thing was really well done, and I'm not doubting whatsoever that Lashes getting whipped with a belt doesn't hurt. It obviously did by the look of his back, but it almost made it sound, the way the talent was out there and was so quiet and somber, they made it sound like he was getting hit with a baseball bat or something. Or he was fucking Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon, hung up and soaking wet and electrocuted or something like that. Or Shane McMahon getting his nuts hooked up to the car battery or whatever. I'm sure it sucked. I'm sure it was painful, but, people can survive those type of blows. It reminded me of the whole place that the Singapore Cane came from in ECW stemmed from that case back in like 94 or whatever year it was, of that kid who got busted in Singapore for stealing or something, and they had caning as a form of punishment in that country. And there's a big debate of trying to get him back. He shouldn't have to be caned. And I think in the end, he did get caned, like 4 lashes. And that's where the Singapore Cane came from, that I think got, basically morphed into the kendo stick. But I remember on ECW, they did something similar with Tommy Dreamer. You ECW fans, fill me in. What did he do back then? And I can't remember who was even in the ring with him. I don't know if it was Raven or might have been Sandman. Yeah, I think it was Sandman, because he used to carry around the Singapore Cane. And he had to take the lashes. I think it was a stipulation in a match. If you lost, you had to get caned. It was a Singapore, there you go, Greg. Singapore Cane match, I believe is what it was. And Dreamer was taking those lashes full force. And he was going, "Thank you, sir. Can I have another?" And a couple of those brought him to his knees. And you could see the fucking pain on his face and the welts on his back. This sort of reminded me of that. And even though I don't doubt that Cody went through absolute hell, no, I'm not going to criticize. I was about to say maybe they were overacting a little bit, but no, that would be a shitty criticism. That would be an entitled fan's criticism of that. It was not like that at all. I thought the segment was good, told a great story. It got over well. MJF did his part. Cody did his part. All of the, extra players, the Young Bucks, the Brandys, the Dustins, the Arns, everybody that came out, all played their role to a T. I liked the nice touch of having the heels out on the stage. All of it was great. And it was a non-wrestling main event. And it was very, very good. Probably segment of the week, if I had to say. So, with that being said, those two shows, man, those two shows were just so incredibly close this week. I'm not gonna cop out and say it's a tie or anything. I'm not gonna do that. But I'm gonna give NXT the victory by 0.00001 of a point. So, okay, fine, it's virtually a tie, but okay, you got a gun to my head. Say, you tell me who won this week right now or you're dead. I'm going to say, okay, NXT, but by the slimmest, and I mean slimmest of margins. But there was a lot of good things on NXT. All of the matches were good. There wasn't one single negative aspect of the show at all. Charlotte coming in and invading NXT in that great promo with Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley, the return of Velveteen Dream. And like I said, and the progression of Tommaso Ciampa and Adam Cole, and just the overall good wrestling that was from top to bottom on NXT. I can't imagine, you'd have to put together a damn good show to be better than that. And AEW came incredibly close in my mind, but I'm just giving the nod to NXT. But again, don't take my word for it. It's just me. It's just, by one little sliver of a point. I'm basically picking a winner because I feel like I have to. And I think I enjoyed NXT on the whole, just a teensy tiny bit more than AEW, but not by much. So certainly don't use that as any ammunition to pick whatever side you're on. Both shows were great, and that's all I care about. Both shows, it seems like, are continuing to push the other to be better. This hasn't died out yet. It's not gotten to the point where, one show is just dramatically better than the other. They're both good. And like I said to open the show, all 4 television shows were phenomenal this week. Great Raw, great NXT, great Dynamite, great SmackDown. How many weeks in a year can we say that? Mark the date right here. What the fuck is it? February 8th? Let's remember this, okay? February 8th, the week of February 8th, was the best week in wrestling in a long time. So if there's plenty of weeks where we might get 2 out of the 4 shows that are good, maybe even 3 out of the 4 if we're lucky, 1 out of 4, probably a lot. But to have all 4 shows, major shows that we watch every week, be good, and especially the ones that I tend to talk about on my podcasts, nothing to complain about this week. Excellent week of wrestling, fun matches all around, great build for pay-per-views, whether it be Revolution or TakeOver Portland or WrestleMania or Super Showdown. I think everything was progressed nicely, and I enjoyed this week of wrestling. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, and there you go. That's a wrap on my notes. I got nothing else other than the end written at the end of my notes to let me know that I'm done. Anything to mention here in the chat? While you guys are still here, I'd love to get some more likes. If y'all could be smashing that for me, I'd appreciate it. I'm going to see if I can catch up on some super chats. I know there's at least one. Probably only one, I guess. Stone Cold. Thank you, man. Stone Cold 10X. Good to see you in here as always. Thanks for the $2. I do hope down the line we get Lashley versus Brock. I do too. But I think Super Showdown would have been dumb because Lashley is not in the position on the roster to face Brock as a credible opponent. They got some work to do with Lashley, if they want to get to that point with him. When he first came in, I thought they could do it. I thought they could build him as an opponent for Brock, but from the minute he got there, remember the obstacle course with Sami Zayn and Sami bringing his family and his sisters? From the minute that guy put his toes in the company, they were treating him like a goddamn joke. My God, so frustrating. So yeah, Lashley and Brock would be a dream match, but they gotta change their direction with Lashley first. And now that Rusev is potentially on the shelf or gone with this contract dispute, and that whole issue now being solved, Lana is moved on too. They had the blow off. I think Liv beat her down to kind of end that whole ordeal. So they brought Liv Morgan back to be like Lana's former lover, and it lasted like 2 weeks. I think Liv Morgan's now on to have a feud with Ruby Riott and leaving the Rusev and Lashley and Lana stuff in the dust, which makes me wonder why they even had to bring her back like that anyway. So if all of that's over with now, what does Lashley do? Babyface turn might be good for him. Oh, were you at the Royal Rumble? You didn't see Sammy Guevara out there in the little tank? That was great. He's a fun kid. Ryan Rhoda, thank you very much. I knew that. I remember seeing that. I didn't have it in my notes. Kenny Omega versus Pac, February 26th, 30-minute Iron Man match. That's right. I completely forgot about that. Thank you for filling me in there. I apologize for not having my facts straight on that. That's going to be good. February 26th. What's that? 2 weeks from this week? Yeah. Oh, no. So it's 3 Wednesdays from now. Okay, so that's a ways off. So that'll be wrestling. They'll be having that 30-minute Iron Man match on the Go Home show to Revolution. Interesting. Yeah, I can definitely see Adam Page having something to do with that. Maybe inadvertently costing Omega the match, leading to more tension between the two. And then maybe they drop the belts at Revolution. I don't know. Yeah, Chris Sanchez, I was using invade as a figure of speech. She invaded NXT. I don't mean she showed up unannounced. I just meant in general. But I see what you're saying. Don't take me literally on that one. Nice, Ego Ray. Glad you got to sit in on some Saturday night mic work. Yeah, if you're on the East Coast now, it is approaching 8 o'clock. And it's only 5 o'clock for me, which reminds me, I got to get the hell out of here and go to work. So yeah, like I said, if you want to download this audio, you can do so in several hours, probably 6 or 7 hours from now. It'll be up on my website and available across all of the podcast sites as well. Also, don't forget, tune into my channel this coming Monday. I'll be up here right after Monday Night Raw. We'll talk about the show. We'll do a live review, and I will also have a date for you on my classic pay-per-view review. I will narrow that down and have an exact release date for that, and it will be this week. It'll be a fun week of videos on the channel. And then we got TakeOver Portland coming up next week, and next week's Winged Eagle podcast will probably include TakeOver predictions and all sorts of stuff. So you're going to see a lot of my face next week. You guys have an excellent rest of your Saturday and an excellent weekend, and I'll catch you on Monday night. Y'all be good.